Hello.
Hello,
Oh,
hello.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome. This is our Friday live, as promised in our promotional videos all week. We're just going to wait a bit here. We see some folks logging in. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I just want to say happy Friday to everybody.
oh yeah. Can't believe it's another Friday already. Another week flew by.
Well,
Yep.
But
next
I'm
week,
glad it is Friday.
yeah, man. It's the end of the month next week too, by the way. So in my mind, I'm already in February, but that's another story.
Yes,
Well,
we are.
Well, you
let's
know,
get started here.
sorry, I'm just rambling. Don't mind me.
Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the culmination of our local celebration of World Investor Month. And this series of events is brought to you by the Bahamas International Securities Exchange, better known as BISX, and RF Bank and Trust. We trust you enjoyed the educational content we created for you. And in case you missed it, please go to our website, rfgroup.com/investwell, and follow us on social media using the handles at RF Bank Trust and at BISX Exchange. If you have any questions during this segment, please leave the comments and we will answer them live here for you. Over the course of this week, we did get some questions submitted, so we will go through those as well. My name is Jackie Claire, and I am your Investor Week guide. Joining me today to go through the questions and provide more information on investing is Keith Davies, CEO of the Bahamas International Securities Exchange, David Slatter, VP of Investment Management at RF Bank and Trust, and Tishrea Johnson, Securities Investment Advisor. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, hello.
Happy to be
Welcome,
here.
welcome, welcome.
It's great to be here, Jackie. Looking forward. I hope you got some hard questions for us.
Listen, we have been getting some hard questions. So let's jump right in, okay? So, Joan Fountain, she says, I am at another stage in my life. I'm a retiree where I'm looking to preserve finances. So, looking for investments that will give me great returns for the rest of my life. For example, index funds, ETFs with dividends. What would you recommend, and how do I move forward to achieve this? What would you recommend? Let's start there. Let's see. Tish, take a stab at it.
Okay. If you're looking to preserve capital, you want to look at things that we call fixed income assets. Um, you can get it through a variety of investment vehicles, including mutual funds. You know that there's a lot of ways to invest in them. And then what it means is just as the name suggests, the asset itself has an income that's fixed. And then you want to look for a product that has that income component attached to it so that you get those regular dividend payments. So that would be my advice. Look for something with fixed income assets um, for you.
David, anything to add?
Yeah, when it comes to retirement planning, and to just add on to Tish's great advice, is that you need to determine what cash flow you need in your retirement, right? So if it turns out that you need, for argument's sake, 5,000 a month or 3,000 a month, and you can use a portion of your portfolio to generate that, that would free up the rest of the portfolio maybe for more aggressive stuff like equity ETFs and the like. Because if you retire at 65 and on average women are expected to live till 85 and men till 83, you've still got a long-term time frame.
Mhm.
And if you intend to leave money, something for your children, then it's a very long-term time frame. So determine how much cash you need, and that'll dictate what kind of portfolio you build.
Do we have index funds in the Bahamas?
Uh, in the Bahamas, we don't have index funds. Granted, we do have, for example, the RF Targeted Equity Fund, that is a Bahamian equity fund. It doesn't mirror BISX, but there's a lot of overlap. There's only so many stocks, right? I think there's 21, 22 stocks on BISX. So they're similar, and we use BISX as our benchmark to measure our performance. Now, of course, Bahamians through the exchange control liberalization program or through the investment currency market could invest externally into any kind of ETF on the planet. So the world is your oyster.
And we're going to touch on that
Oh, sorry.
later on because we do have questions. We were
I was
trying to
gonna.
answer
Sorry, Jackie. I
Joanne
was gonna
right
say
now
we
and
also have
how
US.
she could retire and preserve her finances.
I was
We
going to
lost
say
you
that
there
we
for a
also
second,
have
David. Repeat that.
Go ahead.
I was saying we also have mutual funds listed with BISX that invest externally.
Mhm.
So through those funds that are listed on BISX, you can invest in global equities, global fixed income, and alternative strategies. So there's quite a few ways to gain that exposure, that external exposure.
Okay.
Jackie, if I could,
Awesome. Go
if
ahead.
I can just jump in here for a second, I think uh, I'm glad we have the two sides of the coin here. You have the investment professionals who can give you specific advice, and that says why is BISX here? I mean, I think that person asking that question also needs to appreciate that they need to be going to a market and a location where they have some level of certainty of security,
Mhm.
some level of safety. And so that's what, and we'll talk about what BISX is and what it does. But they, in addition to going to a qualified, licensed brokerage professional, they need to make sure that that brokerage professional plays and operates within a market which is safe and regulated, supported by laws, uh, undergirded by rules. And that's what BISX brings to the table.
Awesome. So Joanne can feel confident when she's placing these investments in the Bahamian market
Correct.
that it is a regulated um, trading space. That is amazing to hear, and I know that will bring some comfort to Joanne as she tries to preserve her finances for retirement. She had another question. What is your take on investing in cryptocurrencies, and would you recommend such investment?
I'll tackle that one. I mean, at this point, I don't view cryptos as an investment. I view it as speculation. So if you have a very high tolerance for risk and you can weather the ups and downs of the cryptocurrency market. At
Mhm.
present, I wouldn't view it as part of someone's investment portfolio, but if you want to speculate, you can do that. I think over time, crypto will become more regulated, and it'll fall into the category of a standard investment category, and you will see people adding it to their asset allocation, adding it to their portfolio. But at present, we think there's still too many unknowns to view it as an investment per se.
And do you have a
Okay.
lot of places where you can even use the cryptocurrency? I think that's an issue too. I think once it gets to the point where you're actually able to spend it and trade it,
Right.
you can look at it more as an investment, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So for Joanne, we don't think it's a good idea because she wants to preserve and it's too speculative, but definitely it's something to watch for the future for maybe the younger, savvy, risk-taking investor.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's reasonable. That's reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a question on YouTube. Ross and Minnis wants to know when are we going to digitize the trading platform currently to sell and purchase? We have to send emails, get confirmations, etc. Why can't we log in like E-Trade and place our orders? Keith.
It's amazing. I get this question all the time. There's a two-part answer to this. The answer is today we can do that. However, the exchange is the location where the entire ecosystem exists. Our broker dealers interface with us. You do realize E-Trade is the broker and the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ is the exchange. The exchange does not provide the linkages that E-Trade does. E-Trade links to the exchange and the investor links to E-Trade. So
Hmm.
what has to happen is our brokers like RF have to make that decision that they're going to facilitate that electronic link that will then link to us. Um, when are we going to do that? You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that based on what we are doing now and the road that we are moving along, that type of electronic trading is something that we see as a part of our future and something that we would want to provide investors. Because what's happening now is after the generation that's come through, who when I talk to them in high school are now in the business world, this is something that they're used to. This is something that they want to see. So we want to deliver this to them. And I can tell you as the head of the exchange, we're going to be working with our brokers to move this in that direction. And I'll say to that question, Mr. Minnis, watch this space, and we are going to deliver that in the short to medium term. Now he's going to say, what does that mean? Throughout the course of next year, we're going to be working on that feature.
Okay, awesome. Hope that answers your question, Rawson. Another question from Sonda Dixon. What is the difference between mutual funds, index funds, ETFs, and hedge funds? David?
What was the question? The difference between what and what, sorry?
Between mutual funds, index funds, ETFs, and hedge funds.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with
I think
index funds and ETFs are an index fund is basically an ETF that mirrors an index. So they're kind of one and the same. You can have an ETF that tracks anything, right? There's ETFs out there that track currencies, track commodities, track I don't know, Russian banks, for example. When you're buying into an ETF, you're basically buying units of a portfolio that tracks an index, okay? And they tend to be very low cost to invest in, and they tend to be very liquid. Now, it depends on the ETF you're investing in, but it's basically a way for someone to take a very large position with the ease of buying, say, a given stock. A mutual fund is slightly different. A mutual fund will actually have a portfolio of investments. And when you buy units of that mutual fund, you're gaining exposure to that entire portfolio up front. And you'll have a professional investment manager overseeing that portfolio. So the idea with a mutual fund is ideally to outperform, say, an index and add what we call alpha. So whereas a mutual fund, it won't be as liquid as an ETF. A well-run mutual fund should be outperforming the underlying index and therefore justifying the additional fee one pays for a mutual fund. And the third question was a hedge fund.
yes.
So hedge funds, I mean, that's a whole other realm that's usually reserved for sophisticated investors that are high net worth, because some of these strategies are very aggressive. So a lot of risk, higher expected return, a lot of risk. So we do have a mutual fund that is an alternative strategy or a hedge fund strategy. And it's kind of a diverse world, but let me give you an example of a type of a hedge fund. You can have a long short hedge fund. So the idea is, they'll take long positions where they actually own a given stock, and they'll have short positions where they don't own it, but they're hoping the price goes down. So what this does, it allows them to position themselves to benefit when the market's going up and benefit when the market's going down. So in theory, they may not have the upside of an equity market, but they won't have the downside either. So you get less volatility, less risk with a decent rate of return. That's the theory. doesn't always work out that way.
Okay.
Now,
So
Jackie,
we're gonna go ahead.
I have to jump in now. You heard that brilliant dissertation by David using a lot of terms, a lot of sophisticated terms and terms that I have to go, okay, now, Dave, okay, I remember that and I understand that, but I had to pause. This is why it is vitally important to have someone in your corner, to have someone to explain that to you, not in 5 minutes, but sit and talk to you for an hour or so and explain why you don't want to or why you should be and how much the costs are and what are the risks of getting involved in an index, a mutual fund, and an ETF. They all have different variables and they're different categories of investment. And so, it takes a lot to understand this. And so we at BISX, we ensure that entities like RF are properly qualified to be able to deliver you that type of advice. And if they do it in a way that's not correct, we come behind and make sure that they are doing it, or that if they're not going to do it, we tell the persons why they shouldn't be allowed to. So this is something I want to harp on this, that investor education is very important, and it's vitally important if you're going to get involved in those types of instruments.
Very, very good, Keith. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think that is what we really want to be the key takeaway from this week. Education, education, education. Read reliable resources online and contact your licensed brokers locally for advice. Okay. Jason Thompson wants to know, in the Bahamas, what are the investment options that are dividend producing?
You have, of course, your government bonds. And for those who aren't familiar with how they work, the central bank regularly does offerings. They tell you what is the maturity of the bond, what is the rate that's being paid on the bond, and every 6 months you get an interest payment. You have the function of mutual funds, like I mentioned earlier. We have a mutual fund here that does dividend payments every 6 months. So you have it in that way. You can even open up a brokerage account. When you open a brokerage account and you buy individual stocks, individual bonds, all your payments go into a cash account. And so you can come in every so often and say, hey, I want to take this cash. I want to reinvest it somewhere else. So you do have options. You just probably need to sit down with someone and see which one is the best one for you, because, there's different payments, there's different, rates. So you just need to see which one works best for you, I think.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, for asking. Tim wants to know, are your international funds open for investment?
Effective October 1st, the central bank reopened the BDR market, or also known as the Exchange Control Liberalization Program, and also the investment currency market. So our funds, we have 3 funds that Bahamians can invest in, and it gives them U.S. exposure, global exposure. It's still, and when the investment comes back, they get B dollars. So just bear in mind, you're not getting U.S., you're getting B dollars at the end of the day. But effective October 1st, that market reopened, and so investors can invest externally through those funds now.
Could you, David, just expound on it's 2 sides? There are B to US dollar funds that Bahamians can invest in. It's US dollar securities. They invest in B dollars, but they do not need to pay to access the investment currency through that way. So could you just speak about the 2 sides so that investors know their options?
So a number of years ago, the central bank wanted to open up the opportunity for Bahamians to invest externally. What they did is, with the licensed brokers and BISX, put together a program called the Exchange Control Liberalization Program. Initially, there was a $20 million per annum quota. That's now, I think, $35 million. So what that means is every quarter, RF gets around 1.7 to 1.8 million that we in turn can invest externally on behalf of our B dollar clients. So every month, if you're interested, we can make an allocation for you. Of course, that does put a cap on the amount, right? So if we only have 1.7 million available, then we have to kind of allocate that. If the demand is for 5 million, then we've got to ration it down to 1.7. Now, many quarters, the full 1.7 isn't requested. So usually most people, what they want, they can get. So
Okay.
keep that in mind.
And so what is the other way Bahamians could purchase international securities?
Right. So the program I just mentioned, that 5% premium that exists in the investment currency market, does not exist in the Exchange Control Liberalization Program. So the investor doesn't incur that 5% upfront cost. They still have the 1.5% stamp tax. If you go to the central bank through the investment currency market, you pay 5% upfront plus the 1.5% stamp tax. When you bring the investment back to the Bahamas, you get 2.5% back. Okay, so it's a little more expensive up front, but it allows you to actually invest in whatever you want once you get central bank approval.
Okay. Perfect.
Now,
So we have
Jackie,
quite. Go ahead.
now I have to jump at the end of the day and say why. I'm gonna tap BISX on the back. That program was brought about through collaboration with BISX and the central bank to find ways to provide additional avenues for Bahamians to invest. And so
Mhm.
we worked for quite a while to put that program into place. And the result is what David is talking about. So throughout the month, and even right now, David, we at BISX, we administer that. So we oversee the movement of those monies and how much monies are moving to the different brokers who are our members who are participating in the program. So again, the persons that are investing in this, they need to understand that undergirding this is a program that is properly regulated, monitored, and to ensure their safety and security at the end of the day. So, so that allows persons like David and others to do the things that they're doing in an environment that benefits them.
Mhm. It also gives us the opportunity to add new mutual funds to that
Mhm.
portfolio, right? Right now we have 3, but for example, down the road, if we wanted to create a cryptocurrency fund, we could use this program to give Bahamians exposure to cryptocurrency if we decided to do that. So,
Awesome.
Jackie, also, I know if you don't mind, I mean, I wanted to just when you were giving, someone was answering the question on dividend paying
Mhm.
investments. I heard terms like maturity, rate, dividends, stock dividends, and again, I want us to pull us back because every time we say those things, people are saying, "What does that mean?" Particularly for like a government bond. What is that? The government, you're lending the government money. When we say maturity, that means when does the bond expire? Meaning when do they have to give you back the $100 you gave them?
Mhm.
The rate is how much interest they're going to pay you on a yearly basis for the money that you loan them. So those are the things I want us to just stop and say, that's what this is, and that's how this works. The last thing I want to say in terms of dividends and why, David, I want you to pick up on stocks and why they are the potentially the most risky part of investing. Because a stock doesn't have to pay a dividend.
Mhm.
I've had people come up to me and say, they're not paying dividends, they doing something wrong. And I'm like, no, dividends are declared by a board of directors. Dividends are typically declared when a company is making money.
mhm.
Mhm.
Dividends may be held back even when a company is making money for reinvestment to do more. And then they pay those dividends later. So those are discretionary. And so it is important for you to get involved in your public company, in your dividend paying company, and ask management, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And when are you going to do it? So, David, if you could just pick that up.
Mhm.
Sure. I mean, I was going to go back to the bond example, and I get to the dividends on stocks. When you go to the bank and you put your money on a fixed deposit for a year with a bank, you're lending the bank your money for a year. The maturity is a year out, and they've in turn promised to give you a certain amount of interest. A bond is the same way, but you're not lending the money to the bank, you're lending the money to the government. If
Mhm.
it's a corporate bond, you're lending the money to the company. And uh, what Keith said is absolutely right. So when it comes to obligations of a company, let's suppose a company has issued a corporate bond and they also have common shares. And they may even have what are called preferred shares in between. We won't go there. They've issued a bond. First, they have to pay the bondholder. Then, if they have sufficient cash left over, then they have to pay the preferred shareholder. Then, if they have sufficient cash left over, if they wish, they can declare a dividend to the common shareholder. Now, so sometimes a company will withhold paying dividends because they want to reinvest it back in the company. And if the company is growing at 10, 15% per year, as a shareholder, I'm kind of okay with that because you know what I can do? I can sell some of my shares on BISX and create my own dividend. So I don't
Mhm.
have to rely on the company to issue a dividend. If the company is doing really well, I could sell some of my shares and create a dividend. Let me give an example. One of the companies many years ago came out at $1. The share price had gone up to $9. They weren't paying dividends. They were reinvesting back in the business. One of the major shareholders was complaining, when are you guys going to pay a dividend? I said, well, my goodness, you bought it $1. It's now worth $9. Sell some of them and create your own dividend. I'd much prefer to have a dollar go to 9 than a dollar stay at a dollar and give me 5%. So create your own dividend if the company's doing well over business.
Awesome. We,
All right.
we have a lot of questions coming in, so we're just going to try and get through as much as we can here. Paper Chasing Phil, he wants to know, are there any insights on the port development investment? And is there any dividend payment for the port development at this time?
Is that the Nassau Cruise Port or Arawak Port? I assume it's Nassau Cruise Port.
Probably Nassau Cruise.
Yeah. Paper Chasing Phil did not.
Let me speak to that generally, and this is just a basic principle in terms of what's coming and how the market operates. We typically have a policy that you don't talk about it until it happens, or if anyone talks about it, it's the company that's doing it. There's a reason for that. If David starts to speculate on something that's not public, then he's talking in the ether. He doesn't know. He doesn't. If Tish starts talking about this and starts saying things, she's speculating. Typically, we await for the company to make a pronouncement. I do believe the company has made a pronouncement of its intentions. Good intentions, until they become reality, are not things that the exchange will speak about, because again, in a regulated market, you speak after the entity that is responsible has spoken. And so that is for the safety and protection of everyone. And so there will not, and that goes doubly for dividends. Until they declare what their policies, practices, and procedures are going to be, you can't speculate. So that's something that none of us can speak to until such time as it becomes public information.
Okay. Paper Chasing Phil, I hope that helped. If it did not, please contact your licensed broker for more information on that, okay? So most people want to know, we have a few questions around this. I am interested, I want to start. Are there minimums? Where do I go? What do I need? Tish, can you just start going through for us what are the basics that someone should go to their licensed broker with, and how they could start investing?
Okay, so I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of all of the programs that are available. So I'll speak specifically to RF. You can start with $100 with RF if you open up a brokerage account. Our mutual funds, they start at $500, and then it goes upwards to $5,000 to start. So it encompasses the whole community. If you want to start an investment, the whole idea is you can. Coming in, the regulations, what you need to open up an account has been relaxed. So at this point, all you would need is your passport and either your NIB card or driver's license to open up an account. So yeah, $500 minimum. That would get you into a fund that's a little bit more aggressive. So, we sort of gear that towards the younger persons or the persons who have high net worth and can put some money in there. But yeah, that's the minimum.
Okay, and are there any mechanisms where I can put money in monthly, or how does it work for me, like to grow the investment?
Okay, so typically anyone who starts with less than $10,000, we recommend that they put make a monthly deposit. And when you sign up at account opening, you can complete a form that allows us to deduct a monthly payment from your bank account, and then we would put it in. I don't want to say subscribe, Keith. We would put it in your investment here at RF. So you don't have to do any work. You just set it. I always say set it and forget it. Just let it keep coming and growing.
Awesome. So Marknell Jakes wants to know, with the arrival of FTX in the Bahamas, do you think cryptocurrency will be regulated sometime in the future? Keith?
I think you're on mute.
I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I was just running on. I was going on. So I'm glad you asked that question. Earlier we talked about, and David mentioned, what he thought about cryptocurrency as an investment. It is an unregulated market. If something goes wrong, you are not protected. If somebody makes a statement, like I think Jeff Bezos or one of those guys made a statement about a particular cryptocurrency and it went up one day and he changed his mind, it went down the other day. If he did that in a regulated stock market, he'd be in jail. You can't do that. So there's a big difference. The reason why crypto and there's a whole, I'm a part of a regulatory committee of a global nature that's talking about this right now. And there are several issues related to it. The one thing is that you don't want to elevate something that really has no basis to a regulated environment because it gives it a level of legitimacy. Most of these cryptocurrencies have no basis in reality. They're nothing. They have nothing behind it. You can't even point to a person. The only reason they have a value is because you're prepared to pay it. That's scary. So there will be some level of regulation, maybe not the entity, the cryptocurrency itself, but the person's doing it. And so I can tell you now that all of those cryptocurrency exchanges, they are desperate to be affiliated with a regulated exchange. They are desperate to be a part of the regulated community because they know, much like the dot-com bubble of old, that there's going to come a time when someone says, this doesn't work, and what are you going to do? And that's the reality. So some form of regulation is coming. I'm not sure exactly the form it will take, but it will be necessary because when you have this volume of money being involved, governments and regulators become interested because, again, let's go back to the beginning. Investing 101 and regulation 101, you start at the investor and you work your way backwards. So we want to protect the investor. The way we're doing it right now is giving them all the information. I just told you it's not regulated. I just told you if something bad happens, you can lose some of all of your money like that. If that's something you still want to go into after having all of that, well, then the way the law works is it's on you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, David.
I always tell people when it comes to like a medium of exchange, right? So, cryptocurrency would like to present itself as a medium of exchange. But for example, the US dollar or the Canadian dollar, what is it backed by? It's backed by the actual government of that country. And that government is backed by what? The economy of that country, right? So for example, in the case of Canada, they have 20% of the world's water. They have 1/3 of the northern forests. So they have resources galore. They have the ability to generate real product that they can sell to support their economy. So when you're buying the Canadian dollar, you're getting basically the support of the entire country behind it. When you buy crypto, as Keith mentioned, what's behind it? Who's behind it? The only thing that's behind it is really people speculating on where it will be, right? And I think it was like Tesla. At one point he came on and said, we're going to accept Bitcoin as payment, and the price goes up through the roof. Then he changes his mind, price falls again. So as Keith was mentioning, I mean, the ability to manipulate the value of that particular cryptocurrency is problematic because it's not regulated.
And I think, Jackie, the issue also is that people sometimes get confused between the currency and the technology.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrencies are undergirded by blockchain technology, which are basically, let's not get too technical, it's an algorithm that gives you a level of certainty that something is owned or held by or transferred by. And so that medium of exchange, the cryptocurrency is the token that sits on top of that chain. And that is really what's been created. So Bitcoin is the token that sits on top of the blockchain. And so it's used as a medium of exchange. And so for that purpose, I understand and I agree that in terms of its transaction ability and its usage, it does have use cases. But in terms of inherent intrinsic value, you got a lot of convincing to do to tell someone that just because you want to buy it for, you buying this for $2 million doesn't make this a $2 million phone. And that's what happens with a lot of cryptocurrency.
Le-
So
Um,
go ahead,
I'm
Tish.
not sure. I mean, I'm not sure a lot of people would really be interested in this, but I mean, for me personally, when you hear that something is unregulated, the chances are there's a lot of money laundering, a lot of criminal activities. And I'm not saying that there is, but I'm saying that it's open for those things to happen more easily because there's no one there to really monitor, the activities. So if you're a person who you don't want to be responsible for funding terrorist activity and criminal activity, that's another reason, why you may want to think twice about entering those types of unregulated markets.
So once again, the prevailing theme remains education, education. You can make a decision, but it must be an informed decision where you are fully aware of what could happen in the various scenarios. Good. Another question. Is BISX the same as Arawak X? And if not, what is the difference?
Oh, great question. Arawak X is a crowdfunding platform. So they are a website which has been given the authority to post offering memorandums for entities that are below a certain size. Those offering memorandums have they're not required to provide you all the information of a full-fledged prospectus, and I'll explain the difference. And they basically present to would-be investors an opportunity. Um, it is designed for smaller companies. It is designed for companies that probably have no track record, and I would argue that potentially a little bit more speculative. So, what's the difference? BISX is a full-fledged stock exchange. We are Our entire ecosystem is the market. So we bring buyers, sellers, brokers, and companies together. So, and all of them are undergirded by rules that are supported by law and enforcement to ensure that listing, that's where the companies say, I want to sell. And by the way, those companies are can be hundreds of millions of dollars. There's no limitation on a full-fledged exchange.
Okay.
They offer all manner of securities. In that crowdfunding environment, the only thing that they can offer, I think, are the equities. We
Okay.
can offer debt, we can offer preference, we can offer bonds. We have the full gamut. And so therein lies another difference. The other thing is that we offer full-fledged trading. And that trading, again, is undergirded by a series of rules that ensures transparency. Transparency means you know exactly what everyone is doing. And
Mhm.
fairness means that if there is a queue to buy, then you get placed in the order which is fair for you. So, I think also for companies, there's also a big difference in a crowdfunding environment. In a crowdfunding environment, there's less reporting. So those companies are going to be reporting maybe half yearly. On BISX, you report every 3 months. And every year, you're required to provide audited financials. We enforce and ensure that that happens. Additionally, we're required, under our rules, we require companies to provide information that is material immediately. A company has no choice, but if something happens with a company, they must disclose. There is a process and procedure for doing that. Additionally, if there are significant investors in a company, they're required to disclose what they did when they did it. So
Mhm.
there's a big difference between a crowd fund and a full-fledged stock exchange like BISX. As I always say, we ask the 6 questions. We ask the what, the why, the when, the where, the how, and the who, more so than a crowdfunding platform.
Awesome. We have gone through all of the questions we have so far. Please, you do have some time to submit a few last minute questions here. We will look at it. But while we wait, guys, this has been an awesome, awesome, awesome investor week. And we had a wonderful time here with B6 and RF Bank, just providing for you the information that you need to know when investing. Any last words to those who need to start investing or have been investing want to build that portfolio? Any last words we want to say? David, you start.
Okay. I think earlier Tish mentioned that, with as little as $100, you can get started with a brokerage account. So my advice would be, don't put it off. Get started. If it's a small amount to begin with, don't worry about it. At least you get started. It's like, an exercise program. Get started. Walk 20 minutes and build up to an hour, right? But get started. If you don't get started, then time gets away from you and you're going to look back and you're going to go, oh my goodness, I wish I had started sooner. The number one, what should I say, asset that investors have is time. The earlier you start, the more time you have for your investments to work. Compounding, in other words, earning a return on your return, right, over time, is that's where the power lies. So starting early and investing regularly is how you will be able to retire early and retire with the wealth that you need to live a good retirement. So start early, start now.
Awesome. Tish?
Okay, so I know from these seminars and webinars we've been doing, we're dealing with a lot of persons who are just starting out, who don't know much about investments. A lot of them probably need to start at the financial planning stage first. But what I would say, one of the things, if you sit with a financial planner, they'll probably tell you, make sure you have so much in savings before you start, which is good advice. But I have to agree with David. The thing is to just start. If you can just start an investment with $100 or $500, and you're going to set a realistic goal of how much you can put away monthly without feeling it, why not start it anyway? Um, so you can contact me. Of course, I'm here, Tish Johnson at RF Bank and Trust, and we can sit down and see where you're at, where you want to go, how we can get you there. It's a process. It's not overnight. You have to put in the time, put in the effort, put in the work. But at the end of the day, that goal is that, when you're no longer able to work anymore, the only thing you have to rely on is what you've saved or invested and the few cents that NIB will give you every month. And you definitely don't want to depend on NIB, trust me. So, just get started. That's it.
Keith?
Yes, I think, for me, one of the major takeaway really is individuals need to use the time that David talked about and ask sensible questions about their money and where they're using it. We deal with brokers, we deal with companies, and we deal with investors. So let's put on the lens and look through that from the investor standpoint. For brokers, the first thing you need to be talking about is, who are they? Are they properly regulated? Where do they operate? How long have they been operating? What's been their success rate in offering these services? What services do they offer? I invite these investors to compare and contrast. We have 5 broker-dealer members on BISX. RF is one of them. They're all good. And so look at them. Ask those questions. They are working for you. It's your money. Don't be shy. If you don't feel comfortable, don't work with that entity. These, Tish and David, work very hard to make people comfortable by taking the time to get them to the point where they understand how their money is being deployed. And I always say it's when you deal with other people's money, OPM, you better do it a certain way and you do it right. Because I tell people all the time, if they don't do it, you fire them and you take your money, your Georgie bundle, and you go next door to the person that's going to take care of you. That's the broker-dealer side. On the company side, I think don't do this. Yeah, I know them. I think they okay. Yeah, I know that fella. I know someone that did it. I'll do it too. No, you're gonna lose your money if you do that. Ask questions. Who's running the company? How much money did they raise? What are they gonna do with that money? What time frame do they think that they're gonna make money? How are they gonna make that money? and a myriad of other questions you want to add. So if you don't get basic information about the company and what they're going to be doing with your money, because you're going to be a part of that, then I suggest that you have problems with which you need to solve. And the
Mhm.
old adage is, if you don't understand something, what's the answer? Don't
Yeah,
do it.
ask questions. Oh.
If you don't understand, don't invest. And so there's a lot of information, Jackie, that's out there, and you've got to be able to sift through the noise to be able to invest. Investment is not a gamble.
No.
Okay, and that's something that I want to tell people. We made the joke that when you play numbers, that's an investment. It's a bad investment, but it's an investment, and it might be a fun investment. I went to Las Vegas many years ago. I walked into a casino, and yes, I gambled. And you know what? I went in there understanding that I was going to lose every dollar I walked in there with, but I
Mhm.
had fun. The people that I was with, and it was a great time. But that was disposable income that I could afford to lose. Not many people have that option, and therefore don't gamble with your money. Take the time to learn and to invest wisely.
Keith, Lyndon Seymour is asking, are there any recommended trusted websites to obtain information about investment platforms and practices?
You know, there are, I think, the regulatory agencies, the Securities Commission website is a wonderful starting point because it points to all of its regulated entities. The BISX website, again, a regulator of a market.
Mhm.
So I would start at the regulatory levels for all countries and then go down through the regulated entities that they point you to. Of course, I've heard individuals say, "Well, I Googled this and this is what Google said." Well, I got $1 for a bridge. I want to sell you too.
Mhm.
It doesn't make it right that it's online.
It's right.
And I can tell you there's a lot of information that is useful online, but there's a lot of garbage online. And
Mhm.
so once you've found the information and done your research, I would highly recommend that you talk to someone on the ground, someone that is liable, responsible, and has a fiduciary. Fiduciary means they are obligated to act in your best interest.
Mhm.
And that's the likes of Tish and David from RF.
Lastly, guys, how can Bahamians living abroad make investments in the Bahamas through BISX?
It's a little more complicated than people realize. I think that you're allowed to have a maximum of $50,000 in a brokerage account, $B brokerage account. Anything above 50,000 needs to be approved by the central bank. And if you want to have US dollar investments, then you need central bank approval as well. So once again, the central bank approval is needed for the most part.
For the most part, okay.
But
But
you
they
can,
will.
And I
but
just want to highlight a lot of Bahamians who now live in the US. They always, they contact me and they're like, what do I have my Bahamian passport? And can I still open as a Bahamian? So I just, and I get this question a lot. So I want to stress that we are obligated to report to FinCEN, to the IRS, if we have a US citizen or a US resident opening an account. We face stiff penalties if we do not report that we have those types of accounts here. Um, and furthermore, as we go through the account opening process, you're going to have to give a phone number, an address where you work. And these things, you can't hide that you're not living here in the Bahamas. So I just wanted to, because I get that question a lot. And so I just wanted to point that out that we are obligated and we are going to report that you are a US citizen or resident.
Thank you.
You're on mute again, Keith.
Keith?
Jackie, I want to say something. Oh yes, I'm sorry. I want to say this as well, and I want people to appreciate this. It goes both ways.
Mhm.
Um, People that open accounts in the United States, persons, Bahamians that are identified in the United States, I want people to appreciate and understand that they are known back home as well. If the regulators or authorities ever wanted to find out, know, or understand, the world has become this big. and regulators talk regularly,
Mhm.
and they provide information across borders. We want to remove. We are a regulated financial international financial sector, and as such, we do things correctly as well as communicate properly with our sister regulators and their entities abroad. So information flows back and forth. So doing things in the dark and hiding and money hiding money and bank secrecy, but no, those things are days of the past. Fully regulated markets do things in bright light, in the open, and transparently.
Awesome. I think that is a wonderful way to end today's segment. Okay. This is not the end. Conversations about investment always happens. Okay. So please, please, please check the website at BISX Exchange, or Keith, let me know, what is the website for BISX?
Oh, the website for BISX is www.BISX Bahamas, BAHAMAS.com. BISXBahamas.com. The BISX Exchange is our Facebook handle.
Okay, awesome. So there you have it. Check that website or Facebook, get the information on the licensed broker dealers that are available locally, and contact one of them. Get in touch with a licensed person who could give you advice, a licensed investment advisor. Okay. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat or to send it to at RF Bank Trust. We're more than happy to help you with those questions. This is the end of our local investor week celebration. We hope you really had a wonderful time and you learned a lot about what is available for you when starting to invest in the Bahamas. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to David and to Tishrea and to Keith. Thank you to the Bahamas International Securities Exchange and to RF Bank and Trust for this wonderful, insightful collaboration. Guys, this is not the end. It's goodbye for now. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.